Thank you for being here. I am here to announce that we have reached an agreement with Dono Hartford LLC, the developer of the baseball park, as well as with the Yard Goats, to fill the funding gap on the baseball park, as well as to agree to a new and revised schedule. I'm going to walk through some of the details of that agreement and then happy to take your questions. As you know, a few weeks ago, we all learned that the baseball park was approximately $10.3 million over budget, as well as behind schedule. There, unfortunately, had been a lot of finger pointing, but I think one thing is clear, that finger pointing was not going to get this project back on track, and it was my priority to bring all parties to the table and make sure that everybody participated in a solution to this problem. I am pleased to report that that's what we've done. The Yard Goats will be putting in $2 million of the 10.3. Dono Hartford LLC will be putting in $2.3 million, as well as increasing their pilot payments, their annual tax payments on the entirety of the Dono, the Downtown North development. We will also be removing from the project a parking component that would have cost an additional $500,000 to the city. Altogether, that will leave the city responsible for financing $5.5 million, but the long-term tax payments from Dono will offset a significant portion of the debt service for that issuance. In other words, if you take into account the long-term tax payments that Dono LLC will be making, the City of Hartford will be bearing approximately 1/3 of the burden of filling this financing gap. There is a revised schedule. The new substantial completion date is May 17th. There are a number of very significant milestones along the way to ensure that we get to that date. We anticipate that that date will allow for an opening day of May 31st, although it's up to the Eastern League to schedule their first game. If that date is not met, if the revised substantial completion date is not met, the city preserves our ability to contest the original $10.3 million change order. But it is our hope that after these long and difficult but ultimately productive discussions with the team and with the developer, we will be in a position to get this project back on track and to close the funding gap in a way that minimizes the burden on Hartford's taxpayers and that protects the long-term interests of Hartford's taxpayers. I want to be clear that nobody is standing here waving a mission accomplished banner. There is a lot of work left to do. We need to ensure that the project at the baseball park proceeds on the new revised schedule, and just as important, we need to make sure that the entirety of the Downtown North development proceeds as promised. I think everybody understands that nobody wanted to put more money into this project. Unfortunately, we have to play the hand that we're dealt. And the taxpayers of the City of Hartford were going to be on the hook for far, far more if we were not able to come to this agreement to get the ballpark back on track and ultimately proceed to the next stages of development. So it was a difficult tangle to inherit in the first couple of weeks. I am very grateful both to the team and to the developer for coming to the table in a good faith way, for putting any differences aside and working together as partners to get this done. I now look forward to working together with the team and with the developers to ensure that this proceeds on its new schedule. I am happy to take any questions.
Mayor Bronin, so how should Hartford taxpayers feel about this? I mean, should they be happy about this deal? Should they be disappointed that it got to this point? Should they feel almost robbed in some sense?
You know, Max, I've said from the start, I think the taxpayers have been asked to bear an awfully large burden to get this baseball park done. I think what my message to Hartford's taxpayers is we're trying to get the best result out of a difficult situation, and we're trying to minimize the impact to the taxpayers. If we didn't get, put it another way, if we didn't get this baseball park developed, we would still be on the hook for paying the debt service on nearly $60 million of debt for the next 25 years, and we wouldn't have any revenue coming in to support that. So the taxpayers need this project to proceed so that we can get that revenue to support and fund our obligations into the future. I don't ask anybody to be happy about putting more money in, but I do think this agreement I'm announcing today represents our best effort, and I think a strong effort to protect the long-term interests of Hartford's taxpayers.
And how would you characterize how we got to this point? Was this a muddy process from the beginning, so far as you can tell?
I think anybody who spent time at the Stadium Authority meeting or looking at the issue knows that there is some muddiness to all of this. I'm not really interested in pointing fingers. I'm not really interested in looking back. I'm interested in moving forward. Obviously, I intend for my development services team to be deeply engaged on a daily basis in this process to make sure that things proceed as they are supposed to under the revised schedule. But to me, the best use of my time and the best use of my administration's time is making sure that we get this thing on track and keep it on track.
The city pays $5.5 million. You know we're going to latch onto that number. Can you one more time succinctly explain
Sure.
in as layman's term as possible for the public?
Sure. So $2 million from the team, plus $2.3 million from the developer, plus $500,000 in a parking expense. Take that out of the 10.3 and you're left with 5.5. That's what the Stadium Authority will have to finance. But in addition to that, the developer will be paying $225,000 per year for many, many years to come. That will support, we believe, at least $2 million of that 5.5. So to put it another way, the taxpayers of the city of Hartford are going to be bearing the burden of about 1/3 of the total 10.3 expense. I don't know if that was layman's terms enough, but the headline would be that the combination of contributions from the team and from the developer, along with an increase in the long-term tax payments that the developer will make, mean that the taxpayers are going to be bearing about 1/3 of the financing gap.
A couple of weeks ago, you were saying you did not want to put more city money in.
I did not want to put more city money. I still don't want to put more city money in. Nothing has changed. You know, what I've said all along, including at the Stadium Authority meeting, is the taxpayers are on the hook for debt service payments for the next 25 years, and we have no other option but to get this done and get it done in a way that puts in as little taxpayer money as possible now, so that we can get the revenue that we need to get for the next 25 years. So I think this agreement minimizes as best as we could under the circumstances the additional burden to the taxpayers of the city of Hartford.
Should we read anything into the fact that the city is paying the most here, as far as how the lane goes around?
It depends how you count it. In some ways, I think you could say that Dono is paying the most. They're paying $2.3 million, and in addition to that, they are paying long-term taxes that would support, we believe, at least another $2 million. So in some sense, they're contributing over $4 million to the total financing gap.
And how were these negotiations? Were they contentious? Like, how did these meetings go? I mean, the amount of finger pointing that went on from December 10th until January 6th, I was on our air every day. So what were these conversations like?
Look, obviously they were not easy negotiations, but I want to say that I really am appreciative of the fact that both the team and the developers came to the table and were part of the solution.
So we still have 5 months to go until this is hopefully done. What are the chances the developer's going to come back in March and say, actually, we're $3 million again over budget?
Well, we don't intend to be surprised again. So first of all, on the money, there is no additional money going in. The contracts have been let out. The 10.3 is a number that the developer will be held to. Any additional money will be paid by the developer. In addition to that, we don't intend to be surprised on the schedule. So we've built into these agreements a number of interim milestones. These are significant milestones that need to be met in order to keep the project on track. We're going to be monitoring on a daily basis, but we're also going to be looking at those milestones as an indicator of whether the project is on track.
At the most recent Stadium Authority meeting, those IFG representative of the project said that they were going to review the charges. What did they find after they reviewed the charges?
They I think may still be in that process. I am going to ask them to be focused on making sure that the construction schedule that's agreed to from now on is being met and is moving forward. That's where all of our focus needs to be. We could spend a lot of time and money and effort looking back. What we need to do at this point, given the hand we're dealt, is move forward as best we can and protect the taxpayers as best we can.
What's your feeling on how this is how you had to start your administration?
It's not the first few weeks that I envisioned. There are a lot of priorities that are really important to me that I am eager to focus more time on. I'm eager to focus on our fiscal challenges. I'm eager to focus on youth employment, on strengthening our reentry, and our broad and aggressive economic development agenda. Those are my priorities, and I am very eager to spend more of my time on those priorities and less time thinking about baseball. But all that said, the city of Hartford needs this project to succeed. And so whatever time we spent over the past few weeks to get this project back on track in a way that protected taxpayers was time well spent. And my Department of Development Services will be intensely focused over the next 5 months on making sure that it proceeds on track.
Could you explain the parking element as well to this? Will there be enough parking for people to get to these games by the substantial completion date? And how will that money come back to the city?
There will. Parking is complicated. We probably spent talking for an hour about parking, but the short version is the original agreement had the city spending money to upgrade an indoor parking facility under the old data center on what's known as Parcel G. That money will not be spent. There will be surface parking that's made available to the team after hours. So there are games that occur in the evening when lots aren't being used by other customers, as well as on weekends. And the city, for most of those spots, the city will be compensated and will be reimbursed for any lost revenue. All but important piece is that Dono Hartford LLC will be opening an office, a retail space in the north end of Hartford in the Promise Zone that will serve as a recruitment office where residents of Hartford who should and must be making up 40% of the labor on this project can come, can learn about the opportunities and can apply for a job and hopefully get some assistance in doing so.
Was that a clawback? Was that
That's
your idea or was that their idea?
It was not a clawback. It was something that I asked them to do, and there was no resistance to doing it. Any other questions? All right, well, I want to thank everybody for coming out. I also just want to say one last time, nobody's here waving a mission accomplished banner. We've got a lot more work to do, but I believe that we are now working in partnership, that we've put finger pointing behind us, and we can work along with both the team and the developer who have been good faith partners in this negotiation to move this project forward. Thank you very much.